All right, welcome to the Blitz. It is conference championship weekend in college football. We're talking the Big Ten championship game between Ohio State and Indiana, the SEC championship game between Georgia and Alabama, the ACC championship game, the Big 12 championship game, and any other conference championship game you want to know about. Guys, if you are sick of all the complaining about an admittedly flawed playoff system in college football and just want some actionable info, you have come to the right place. Joining me, of course, as always, Ross, the boss Benjamin, Ralph Michaels. We have made the executive decision, guys, to start with the Big Ten and SEC championship games. Figure all of you watching might have some betting interest in those. After that, we're going to go to the chat. And those of you tuning in live, well, you can determine which of the other games we talk about in what order. Ralph, I'm going to you first for the Big Ten championship game. Number 1 versus number 2. First time in Big Ten championship game history. This surprised me a little bit that we have 2 undefeated teams. Tell me how your thoughts here on number 1 Ohio State and number 2 Indiana.
Brian, since 2000, this is only the second ever championship game with 2 undefeated teams. The other was Florida and Alabama in 2009. Bama was a 5-point dog, won that game 32-13. We finished last week, and I said to you guys, my power ratings have Ohio State a 6.5-point favorite, and that's exactly where it opened. But I completely agree with this line move. The team statistically number 1 and number 2 in college football. Dominant seasons, Heisman candidates, defenses that are elite, offenses that are good enough. Indiana's is a great offense. Ohio State's is enough, but with their defense, it certainly gets them to where they need to be. But I also agree with the line move. This line moved 2, sometimes even 3 points. Right now, heck, there's 4s, 4.5s. You can find 47, 47.5s, 48s. The numbers are all over there, so make sure you're shopping. But the situation to me and the motivation for the Hoosiers clearly has me on their side. Last week, Indiana went to Purdue, won 56-3, had a 266-yard edge. The week before, they mauled Wisconsin 30-7 with a 220-yard edge. For the last 2 weeks, Indiana knew or likely knew they were going to be facing Ohio State, and I guarantee you they worked on some plays against the Buckeyes. Meanwhile, the Buckeyes accomplished what they wanted to. They could not lose another game to Michigan. It wasn't important for them to get to the playoffs, but it was very important for their head coach and their program. And if you saw how emotional Ryan Day was after that Michigan win, you know that they spent the entire prior week, working only on Michigan, not being able to work at all on this Indiana team. Then you have the situation that these teams, as long as nobody loses their starting quarterback and nobody loses by 21 points, these will be the number 1 and number 2 teams in the college football seeding. So it really doesn't matter if you win or lose this game, with the exception of winning the Big Ten. The last time Indiana won the Big Ten was, let me look, I wrote it down yesterday for a show, 1967. These fans are excited to be going to Indianapolis. It's 1 hour away from Bloomington, Indiana. Since 1967, when Indiana won their last Big Ten championship, the Buckeyes have won 27 Big Ten championships since that time. Them not winning the Big Ten, but beating Michigan and winning a national championship, there's not one negative mark on their season. And let me put in perspective how excited these Hoosier fans are. Buckeye fans aren't going to spend this money to go to Indiana. They know they're going to have 3 more games in the playoffs, and they're going to save up to go there. The cheapest ticket to get into the ACC championship this year, $49. Cheapest ticket to get in the Big 12 championship, $114. Cheapest ticket to get in the SEC championship, $268. Cheapest ticket to watch the in-state Hoosiers at Lucas Oil, $589. Those were prices for playoff games last year. So it shows you the excitement of the Hoosiers. If the Hoosiers win this, it is a legitimate building block game for their program for the next decade, as far as recruiting goes, proves they can play with the big boys, means so much more to the Hoosiers. I do like Indiana to cover. Whoever wins the game really doesn't matter to me. It's going to go down to the wire. I also will say this. I do like under first half. Both teams first half dominant. Both game plans are great. And you have to remember, Ohio State also loses Heartland now. The best recruiter in college football, their OC this year, their previous wide receiver coach, taking the job as the USF head coach. Distractions.
I'm glad you said that, Ralph. I was going to follow up with you if you had not mentioned the first half under angle, because I like that as well, the first half under. Guys, no team in the country, this is not talked about enough. I hate to say this is not talked about enough. That just means I'm going to talk about it right now. But what I'm going to talk about is the fact Indiana dominates the line of scrimmage better than any team in the country this year. That I think not a lot of people know about that. That is the reason for their success. Also, Ohio State, we've mentioned this on the show before, guys. No offense is playing slower than Ohio State. There's a lot of time elapsed between plays. That's been key for their defense, this historically great defense, which has been on the field less than any other defense in the country. But Ross, we heard Ralph, he likes the Indiana side. My power ratings are showing value on the dog as well. But I do want to give Ohio State their flowers a little bit, if you will. We have heard a lot about the Buckeyes not showing much, quote unquote, during the regular season. Well, I regret to inform the rest of the country, this team went 10-1-1 against the number, despite not showing much and resting receivers. And they were a favorite of more than 14 points in all but 3 games. Yeah. Since their last straight up loss, which was to Michigan, regular season finale last year, the Buckeyes are 14-1-1 against the number and beating the spread by an average of more than a touchdown. What do you think about the Ohio State side? I think that I said it last week on the show. They cared about that Michigan game. I think they do care a little bit about winning here. Ohio State's not won a Big Ten title since 2020.
Yeah, I've never heard it broken down. Ralph's got the ticket broker strategy going, where the most expensive ticket in the home state of Indiana determines the winner. I love it. Ralph, you come up with something new every week, and then, I think about Indiana. 1967, the last time they were won a Big Ten championship. I was only 30 years old then, Brian. So looking pretty good for 88.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Anyway, yeah, I just think it's the brand of football for Ohio State. They don't have the Marvin Harrison and the 2 guys they had last year and all the wide receivers they were so highly touted that went in the first round over the last few years. They don't have a flashy quarterback, but a really good one. I don't think that kid gets enough love. And so I think that's part of why they're getting that rap of they haven't played anybody. They're not as good as they used to be, which is baloney. All you have to do is look inside the numbers. Look, here's the thing. Both of these defenses, Ralph touched upon, elite. Indiana, 9 conference games this year. Both teams 12-0, by the way. Both teams 9-0 in conference play. Indiana allowing 12 points and 262 yards per game in conference action. Ohio State, 8.6 points per game and 195 yards per contest in conference action. That's otherworldly numbers, on top of the fact just allowing 3.7 yards per play. So those are some dominating defensive numbers. And then you look at the offensive side of the ball. Here's the thing. Brian, you mentioned Indiana controls the line of scrimmage, and they absolutely do. And it's a major reason why they've run the ball 60.3% of their offensive plays this year. Here's the problem. Ohio State is only allowing 81.7 yards per game and 2.8 yards per rush on the ground this year. You mentioned both teams dominating time of possession. They're almost identical. Indiana averages 33 minutes and 40 seconds of time of possession, and Ohio State 33 minutes and 47 seconds. Just a 7-second difference in both dominating time of possession numbers. Indiana's defense against the run, by the way, 79.3 yards per game and 2.9 yards per rush. So That's going to be key against an Ohio State offense that averages over 171 yards per game rushing. And this Ohio State passing game, they have a 78% completion rate and 267 yards per game. But Indiana's allowing only a little over 200 yards per game in the air and 5.9 yards per passing attempt, which is excellent. If you want to do a direct comparison about Indiana facing a level of competition they're about to face on Saturday, let me remind you, they went to Oregon earlier this year. They won at Oregon 30-20, and they only allowed less, or actually 267 yards of offense to Oregon, or I should say held Oregon's offense to 267 yards. Indiana's allowed 24 or less all 12 games, 15 or fewer, and 10 of 12. Ohio State, 16 points or fewer allowed all 12 games this year. Look, here's the thing. I don't think either defense will hold their opponents to what their season averages are, but they're going to hold them to well below what both opponents' season offensive numbers are, if that makes sense. I like this game to be a low-scoring, down-to-the-wire type affair. Indiana, Ohio State, under 47.5.
All right, so there you go with Ross. He's going full game under. Ralph and I, we were looking first half under, and God, yeah, Ohio State has not given up like 12 regular season games did not allow 100 points. That is pretty remarkable right there. I don't know if you guys have any take on the Heisman. You know, this is a game. Obviously, we've got the two starting quarterbacks here of the best teams in the country. I think there's a thought that whoever wins this game, you know, I see people in the chat saying this is, you know, big picture, kind of a meaningless 1 versus 2 matchup in the sense that both teams are still going to get first round buys. I mean, I think the winner's going to be the number 1 overall seed. They're going to be a Big Ten championship. I think these teams care about that. But let Mendoza and Sane, one of these guys, this is like the laziest take of all time, but whoever makes plays, their team's going to win, because I concur with what Ross says. I don't think either of these teams are going to have a lot of success running the football.
Yeah, you know what?
I just don't. So one of these quarterbacks, and the thing with Sane's very accurate, in the short passing game, and he's got the talented receivers, Tate and Smith on the outside, but can't, and they help him. But it's going to come down to a big, which quarterback can make the big play at the right moment. I think that's going to determine.
Look, I'm going to get off the topic a little bit when I give you this opinion on the Heisman. But if if the Heisman is the equivalent to the MVP of the NFL, what player is the most valuable to his team and having success in doing so?
I don't think it's either. Yes,
Diego Pavia, to me, deserves the Heisman Trophy. This a 10-2 Vandy team. That program was nothing until he came there last year. Look at his numbers this year. They might not be as gaudy as either one of these quarterbacks in this Big Ten championship game, but in terms of dual threat and just the moxie and the confidence that he caught, on the field, and the fact that Vanderbilt isn't a top 25 recruiting class every year like a lot of these SEC powers are. And look, I think he's deserving of the Heisman Trophy. So I'm sorry, Brian, I didn't give you the answer on either one of these two. That's my strong opinion.
I'm going to jump in as well, Brian. I had a Heisman vote for 7 years when I managed Phil Steele Publications and Phil Steele's College Football Preview. So I've talked to a lot of the guys, and I'm going to say this. I'm going to agree with Ross that I'm going to agree partly with Ross. If Indiana wins, it goes to their quarterback. If Indiana loses, it goes to Pavia. Why? Because there's still a lot of freshman bias with the Heisman voters. Yes, Archie Griffin in Ohio State, but this kid's a redshirt freshman, and he's going to lose votes to the receivers. The people are going to vote for Jeremiah Smith as well, and you get some split Ohio State ballots. So I think the splitting of them, him being a freshman, Indiana wins, it goes to them. Indiana loses, I think it does go to Pavia. Because the voting, you're allowed to vote Monday until 5 p.m. It used to be where these games were not included in the Heisman vote. They are now where the conference championships are. And a lot of people say that's a negative. And Ross, you should be one of those, because Mendoza has a game to shine where Pavia is not playing this week, and it's what have you done for me lately, unfortunately, for a lot of the voters.
But, at the same time, and I agree with what you're saying, Ralph, I'm not disputing anything you said. Other than the fact that do we count that against Pavia because he's not playing this week? I mean, if we're talking about Heisman Trophy, look at Ohio State's supporting cast compared to Vanderbilt's. When I say outside of the quarterback, and with the talent they have to work with, and would Vanderbilt even be a top 12 or 13 team right now? With
God, no, hell no.
With Ohio State, the way they recruit, and I'm not making light of either one of these quarterbacks in this Big Ten championship games and how they performed this year, but I would say Ohio State more than anything. I still think they would be a top 10 team in vying for a national championship without the kid Sane.
Sane didn't win the job until a couple days before the season started. He was in a battle, so it's not like he impressed them in the fall.
Both of these defenses, too, makes it a lot easier for a quarterback. When your defense is stopping teams consistently the way they do, and you're dominating time of possession, which goes hand in hand with your defense. I'm not so sure, again, weighing that factor in. I would not penalize Pavia for that, but I'm sure some voters will because he's not playing this week.
So, Ross, are you saying it's easier to be a quarterback in the second half when you're up 24-0 versus Pavia having games tied and having to fight and battle like the Texas game? And
I think there's
a lot to do with that as well. He's showing what he can do against competition when the game is on the line.
Yeah.
I think we're all in agreement. It's funny that you brought that up. I was going to throw that if you didn't, Ross, the Pavia for Heisman idea, because I concur. Obviously, if you take Sane off Ohio State, if you take Mendoza off Indiana, if you take Pavia off Vanderbilt, which team suffers the most? It's going to be Vanderbilt. So speaking of Diego Pavia is not in the SEC championship game, but you know who is? Georgia and Alabama. And we're going to go to that game next, guys. Rematch from the regular season. Alabama snapped a 30-plus game home win streak for Georgia. Very interesting to me. Bama, they were what? They closed plus 2.5 at Georgia. Now they're plus 2.5 at a neutral site. Obviously, Georgia, it's in the state of Georgia. Georgia just played here last week against Georgia Tech, but it is a neutral site nonetheless. Guys, we're going to deviate a little bit from our normal script here because this is the game that both of these gentlemen's best bets for the show are on. So we're just going to give you their best bets right here, right now. So Ralph, I'm going to go to you first. You are tackling the side here. Georgia minus 2.5 against Alabama. Which side do you prefer?
I just look at the yards per play diff and what Georgia has done better. In conference play, you look at these teams, Georgia's plus 88 yards per game in SEC action, Alabama only 40. That's not going to change the way you do things. But I look at Alabama, and they were fortunate early. They were in a couple close games. That win against Georgia, a 3-point win. The win at Missouri, a 4-point win. The win at South Carolina, a 7-point win. And the reasons they won those games is they go to Georgia, they won the turnover battle. They go to Missouri, they win the turnover battle. They go to South Carolina, it's tied. The Oklahoma game, the game they lose, which may cost them now, they were minus 3 turnovers. That's the reason they lose that. But in Georgia, I think we have a much better rushing team. They're rushing for 184, 4.5 yards per carry in SEC play. Bama only running for 109 yards per game and 3.2 yards per carry. You look at the defense, rushing defense in SEC action. Georgia allowing 100 yards and 3.3. Bama, 133 and 4.4. Massive rushing edges on both the offense and the defense. You also look at Bama. They've allowed 26 sacks to go along with struggling against the run. In their last 3 games against Oklahoma, Eastern Illinois, and Auburn, they've allowed 4, 3, and 3 sacks. Yes, they were at home against Eastern Illinois as a 42-point favorite, and they still gave up 3 sacks to that team. You look at The Georgia defense, 3-3-3. They have 9 sacks in the last 4 games. You look at Bama, they've had a decent amount of sacks as well. I did go back and I wanted to share these rematch numbers with you. These are conference championship games where the teams already played in the season. So I'm just going to run through them all now just to give you the list. If a team won in the regular season and is at home in a conference championship like Boise and Jacksonville State, they have gone 12-6 against the spread since 2016. So that is a check mark for Boise and Jacksonville. If they won at home, no one's been a road team this year, so I'll leave that out. While the home team is a positive, if you won the first game and you're playing in a neutral game like Alabama, Miami, Virginia, and Texas Tech, the favorite is only 6-12 against the spread, 33%. And since 2018, in a neutral rematch, the over-under 1-13, 93% to the under. And to me, that makes the most sense. Why? You know these conference opponents, you've played them for years, and now you're playing them twice in the same season. So that's the one thing I'll take out of that is look for these unders when they're playing in a neutral setting. But I do like Georgia in this. I also lean with the under as well. I think the Bulldogs get it done. I think that keeps Bama out of the playoffs for this year.
Oof, that will certainly be one of the big talking points. Obviously, if you can, I guess, penalize a team for being for losing its conference championship game. We've got RJ agreeing with you there, Ralph. So that is one thumbs up there. He grabbed Georgia money line -120. Might have jumped on that a little early. I know a few other people who did that as well. So that's the side. That is Ralph's best bet for the show. We'll be recapping these at the end. Ralph likes Georgia laying the points. Ross's best bet happens to be on the total. Take it away, Mr. Red.
Well, Alabama, you might be surprised to know, they went 6-1-2 to the under in their 9 SEC games this year, and 4-0 to the under in their last 4 overall. And defensively over the last 4 games, I know they faced Eastern Illinois. I get that. But they did face 3 SEC opponents, and over the course of that 4 games, allowed just 13 points per game and 222 yards per contest, 4 yards per play. So this is an Alabama defense. As the season progressed, in my opinion, they have improved. And I know that I gave Georgia's defense a lot of flack early on and said that this isn't the Georgia defense we're used to seeing in years past with Kirby Smart. However, down the stretch, they weren't bad, man. 3-0 to the under in their last 3 games, 36 points scored per game. And their defense had a lot to do with those low-scoring affairs. 7.3 points per game, allowed 231 yards per contest, and 4.3 yards per play. And you know what? Offensively, against a very suspect Georgia Tech defense last week, they only scored 16 points. But their defense, again, allowing 300 yards or less in 8 of 12 games this year. I think defense is the calling card for both of these teams in this matchup. And think about this, guys. The first matchup was 24-21. Bama knocks off Georgia, first Georgia home loss in forever. And the total in that game was 54. So it's not like it was a 10-7 game where you adjust the total from 54 to 47.5. So to me, that speaks volumes to me. And I'm glad that Ralph brought this topic up. I always look for a reason to use the under in conference championship games on a neutral field. And just because there's a lot at stake, and they tend to play on the lower side of the ledger as opposed to the higher side on more times than not, I will say. So I'm going to go under here. I'm going to go Alabama, Georgia, under the total of 47.5.
All right, not even halfway through the program. We've got your 2 best bets already, both on the SEC championship game. We've got a vote Georgia on the side and a vote for the under. When it comes to the total, I will bring this up. Obviously, one of the big talking points is Kirby Smart against Alabama. He's not had success, including the loss earlier. He's lost 10 of 11. A lot of people are going to say, oh, a lot of that's Nick Saban, and it's true. But he is 0-2 against Or. It was a very interesting first game in that Alabama was shut out in the second half. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think they scored a single point in the second half after they got that early double that early 14-point lead. They had to hold on. So there you go. My power ratings actually do show a little bit of value on Alabama, but Alabama, I don't know if this influences you guys at all. This tickets, Alabama feels like it might be a public dog a little bit here. I don't know if you guys have any comment on that.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I am a little nervous looking at my power ratings, and I feel like George, a lot of people I talk to, a lot of people I respect, including Ralph Michaels, like the dogs in this one.
Yeah, Brian, you could say that anytime Alabama, Georgia, or Ohio State on a dog, they're likely going to be a public dog. So,
and you know what's funny is I think you could have said that when these teams met in the regular season. Alabama was a public dog, and they won outright, obviously. So remember, guys, for those of you who fixate on ticket splits and whatnot, the public does win, believe it or not, once or twice during the course of the year.
Brian, here's the other thing. I mean, we always factor in revenge, especially when it comes to conference championship games, but this is a different type of revenge. Georgia loses at home to Alabama earlier this season, and Ralph probably could have the exact numbers for you. I believe that they had won 34 straight home games going into that matchup, and they haven't lost at home since. So not only do they have revenge, they have a revenge of losing to their bitter rival at home, breaking a long home win streak.
And we talked about the line of scrimmage in the Big Ten championship game breakdown. Georgia certainly controlled the line of scrimmage despite losing the regular season meeting. They ran for 227 yards on the Bama defense with the RJ in the chat, saying if Ty doesn't get his touchback, Bama's going to lose. He's been off from it. Yeah, I think there's talk that Ty Simpson is a little banged up, trigger man for Alabama. All right, those are the two big games, guys. If there's any game you want us to talk about next, let us know in the chat. Otherwise, we're going to keep going with the bigger games right now. But we are about halfway through the show. I want these guys. They've already given you a free best bet here on the Blitz, as we do every week. My best bet, we'll save it for when that game comes up, and then we'll recap at the end. But I want these guys to tell you what they've got going on this weekend at WagerTalk.com. Obviously, a very busy weekend, not just conference championship on Friday and Saturday, week 14 on Sunday. Ralph, I'll throw it to you first.
Well, the bowls are around the corner, and we've got a great way to end the college football season. The Bowl Bonanza, $149. But if you sign up now, you're going to get the conference championship game week for free, plus the Army-Navy game. So sign up now. You followed us all year, all three of us in college football. We certainly appreciate that. And, it's clearly the way to go. So $149 college football bowl special. Get the rest of college football for free. And Brian, let's mention to our guys that even if we don't get to their game, at the end of the show, we'll put up a screenshot which gives you our opinions on every conference championship this week. So make sure you stay tuned to the end. Even if we don't get to your game, you can still find out what our leans were.
Absolutely. We huddled up before the program and got all of our leans in on those games. So that will, yes, in addition to best bets, we're going to share with you what we think about every game, just to recap. And Ross, why don't you recap what you've got going on over at the site right now? I know you're looking forward to another big weekend.
Yes, I am, Brian, especially coming off a losing week in college football, which is rare for me over the last 3 years. Number 2 in college football this year, number 1 last year, number 2 in 2023, up over 124 units in college football over the last 3 years. And you know what? Postseason picks in college football since 2023, documented by WagerTalk. I am 40-21 with those selections. So conference championship games, bowl games, and playoff picks, 40-21. That's good for 66%, folks. So that $149 is a small ask when you consider all that. And also, don't forget the Weekend Warrior Special, $49. My NFL right now on a 13-4 run. College football in the NFL, 60% winners over my last 156 combined picks between college football and NFL. So $49, you'll get all my picks on Saturday in the conference championship games that I release, Sunday in the NFL, and Monday in the NFL as well, including all 5% best bets. So there you have it, Brian.
All right, let's get back to the games. What do you say? Let's stick on Saturday, guys. Let's stick with, let's go the ACC. Virginia and Duke, the game that no one really wants to talk about the game. I don't know how Duke, folks, I don't know how the ACC tiebreaker works, but it worked in favor of Duke, and they are here, and the ACC may have screwed itself right out of the college. If Duke wins this game, the ACC will not be represented in the college football playoffs, something that we need to clarify for those who may be unaware, and I've misspoken on this before in the past, I believe. It is the 5 top conference champions that get in to the college football. It is not the 4 major conference champions and 1 group of 5 spot. So if Duke wins this game, they are currently behind both the American winner of North Texas and Tulane, and then if JMU presumably wins the Sun Belt, James Madison, they too are in front of Duke. Duke actually lost to Tulane too, which doesn't help its cause. So if Duke pulls the upset here, guys, that's not what the ACC wants. I don't know if they're going to, maybe give the officials a little nudge before the game starts. Far be it for me to accuse anyone of any funny business. But what do you think, Ralph? Duke was a 5-point favorite when these teams played in the regular season, and they lost by 17, and they were statistically dominated. Virginia has won a lot of games, a lot of funky business, a lot of late game variance has gone their way. That was not one of them. They were clearly the better team against Duke when these teams played in the regular season. So I would say the Who's, the Cavaliers, are a deserved favorite for this rematch. I know you had some rematch, revenge trends, rematch trends that you spoke of early on. What do you think here? Is Virginia going to punch its ticket to the college football playoff?
Yeah, I'm 90% Virginia is going to be on my card, Brian. I don't even understand why this line. I'm going to be Ross for a minute. This line makes no sense. Make sure you check him out every Wednesday on WagerTalk TV. He and I are on. So I love the segment. It's easy for me, guys. I'm a line of scrimmage guy. You look at Virginia down the stretch, last 4 games, 195 yards, 4.8 on offense rushing, 77, 2.3 on defense. Duke, 3.4 on offense, 4.6 on defense. And I also like looking at what these teams did compared to their opponent's season's averages. Virginia, number 30 on offense, number 28 on defense. Duke is number 38, 3 spots worse on offense, and number 111 on defense. They have gotten mauled. Their last 5 games, 560 yards to Clemson, 467 yards to Connecticut, 540 to this Virginia squad. First game, by the way, Virginia, 540 yards, Duke, 255 yards. Virginia had a 285-yard edge at Duke. Again, Virginia for me, no question.
I would hate to pile on Duke here, Ross, but I'll point out, in addition to being clearly the inferior team the first time these teams met, they were off kind of a fraudulent win last week over Wake Forest, 49-32. They were outgained in that game by 90 yards, benefited from the +4 turnover margin, did the Blue Devils. I'm with Ralph. I like Virginia in this game. I think they are going to punch their ticket and avoid a disaster situation for the ACC. Are you going to make a clean sweep here, 3 for 3?
Well, I am, but let me preface it by saying this. If I'm the ACC commissioner, I beg to differ with you, Brian. Duke winning is not their worst nightmare because it would open up a spot for Miami of Florida, which I think would assuredly be in at that point. And Miami of Florida is the team in the ACC with the best chance of making a deep run in the college football playoffs. Virginia, with a win, is anyone here really confident Virginia is going to win a college football playoff game? I'm not. And you've been saying they're fraudulent all year. However, having said that, in this matchup, look, they have a lot to play for. They know if they win this game, they're in the college football playoffs. Duke is just happy to be there. It was a gift. It was gift wrapped for them. They didn't expect to be there, and they are. But Ralph makes a good point. And the biggest difference in this game is Virginia's defense compared to Duke's defense. Duke's defense has been terrible, especially down the stretch. Virginia, on the other hand, they've been steady. Not great all year, but certainly much better statistically than Duke. And again, when it comes to rematches, yeah, I mean, you got to. I talked about revenge before, but we're talking about a Virginia team that won that game handily against Duke. And Brian, you brought it up. They really beat them up physically, and I just have a hard time when a team met another team earlier in the season and not only won the game handily, but beat them up physically and on both sides of the ball and both line of scrimmages. So I'm going to take Virginia here, reluctantly take Virginia.
Ralph, I believe you wanted to chime in here.
I did. Ross, I didn't even notice this. And again, I like looking at averages at what they allowed. So Virginia's defense, I'm going to read out where they ranked on what they allowed their opponents on defense. 5, 7, 3, 7, 10, 6, 8, 11. Those were their first 8 games of the year. They didn't even hold any team to a season low or a season number 2 low. Their last 4 games, they've held California to a season low, 92 yards below their average. They held Wake Forest to a season low, 203 yards under their average. They held Duke to a season low, 173 yards under their average. And they held Va-Tech to a season low, 166 yards under their average. The number 1 defense in college football as far as what they allowed their opponents relative to the rest of the season. And I really don't know an answer. Do you, either of you guys, did they get people back mid-season that I missed something? But to see a transformation like that down the stretch amazes me.
Yeah, I just think they got better as the season went on. I wanted to talk about something that Ross mentioned there with Miami of Florida, who I think we would all concur is the best team in the ACC on paper. Let's be honest. If they were in this game, they'd be a huge favorite over both Virginia or Duke. I think Miami's path, correct me if I'm wrong, it's sort of independent of this game. I think it boils down to they want BYU to lose to Texas Tech in the Big 12, so BYU is just out of the equation. And then if Miami moves up and they're next to Notre Dame in the rankings, then all of a sudden people are going to start yelling about the head-to-head result when Miami beat Notre Dame to end the year. I think that's maybe for ESPN to talk about. You guys can. I'm sure
I just looked while you're talking, Brian and Ross. Yeah. I do have Miami on a neutral site 10 points better than Virginia.
Yeah, I mean, it speaks volumes. I mean, Miami's clear. The ACC should have put Miami in this game, and then there would be no problems. But don't watch ESPN, guys. Watch us, please. Like and subscribe. Smash that like button below us. Smash that subscribe button as well.
People make a big deal out of that head-to-head matchup. Was in week 1. It was at Miami. It was only a 3-point difference, and Notre Dame really dominated, I believe, and statistically, not dominated, but they held an edge statistically in that game. So, the type of situation, Brian, that we've witnessed in college football year after year is sometimes it gets lost in the shuffle when it comes to a result early in the year compared to a result late in the year.
Yeah, I just think the powers that be in college football, they just live for this week by week arguing that we have. Rather, I to be honest, guys, I don't know what the answer is to make this playoff make more sense. I think I talked about it Monday with Joe Ranieri and the Prez on the best betting show ever.
Yeah, and Brian,
I don't know what the correct answer is. I just know that it could be a mess. Sometimes select these teams.
But you're also looking at Miami's losses. They came against Louisville, who just fell off a cliff at the end of the year, even though they crushed Kentucky in the final week, and then they lost to SMU in overtime on the road as a 12-point favorite. Yeah. Notre Dame's losses come against Texas A&M and Miami by a combined 4 points.
Yeah, and that loss to Texas A&M, of course, was because the
the
holder botched the extra point. So we shall see. Trust me, guys. No matter who makes the college football playoff, the Blitz will be back covering that show. I believe we're probably all. I don't know if I should be saying this out loud. This is probably for when the show goes off the air, but we're probably off next week with just one game, but then we'll be back the following week. So again, guys, like and subscribe. We appreciate the support.
Brian, I think there are 2 bowl games next week too, or 3 bowl games with Army and Navy. They started the bowl games earlier this year because everything got moved up. So
that's right. That's right.
I think we will be here for a mini show.
Okay, we may have a mini show next week. Oh, thank you for correcting me there, Ralph. All right, let's do the Big 12 championship game. Texas Tech and BYU. BYU, this is a regular season rematch. BYU was Well, they were not good in the regular season game in Lubbock. That, if you guys remember, Saturday morning when these teams met that Saturday, I remember just watching that line go up. They were betting Texas Tech like they knew the final score. And Texas Tech did really dominate BYU in that game. They won handily. They covered all numbers. And it could have been worse, too. Texas Tech got into the red zone 7 times and only scored 2 touchdowns. BYU, they only ran the ball for 47 yards. So now, as a result, we've got a situation, BYU getting the same amount of points on a neutral that they were getting in Lubbock during the regular season. I think BYU's been kind of lucky all year, but I also kind of think, Ross, this is too many points. For like BYU's playing with house money here. Obviously, Texas Tech's been great. Nobody's been better at the betting window, but I don't know. It's a lot of points to be laying, considering how well BYU's looked the majority of the year, except that Texas Tech game.
Why would you say that BYU is playing with house money, Brian? They're a one-loss team the last I checked, correct? And they're playing for playoff lives.
Yeah, they are. Well, I think everyone's counting them out. I guess that's just the expression. Okay. Nobody's really given them a chance. The pressure is not on BYU in this. In my opinion.
To me, house money would be like in the NFL. If you're playing if you're clinched the wild card spot, and if you win, you could win a division. Surprisingly, but anyway, having said all that, look, I just think the difference in this game is Texas Tech's defense. I just think that BYU is going to have a difficult time moving the ball on Texas Tech. You make a good point, Brian, because basically what they're telling us here is if this game was at Texas Tech, they would be somewhere around a 16-point favorite. So they are. I mean, you said this. The line is around the same, and it's on a neutral field. So it's a good point to bring up in terms of comparison and how difficult odds makers think it is for a team to win at this juncture of the year in this high profile of a game twice in a row and win by a substantial margin. So I'm going to have a small lean on Texas Tech just because I don't think that BYU is going to be able to do enough offensively. I think this Texas Tech defense is one of the more underrated groups in the country. I think we talk about Indiana, we talk about Ohio State defensively, but I'm sure Ralph will touch upon some of their defensive numbers.
What do you think, Ralph? Could BYU look a little bit better than they did during the regular season? Can't look any worse.
The thing I'm going to actually pile on and add some more Texas Tech praise. Because remember, this Texas Tech team, game 1 against Arkansas Pine Bluff, they played 3 quarterbacks. They played Morton, Hammond, and Griffs. Game 2, they played 3 quarterbacks. Oregon State, they played 2 quarterbacks. Utah, they played 2 quarterbacks. Then they play 1 against Houston, Morton. Then they both play a couple more games. So, you're looking at a team that has gone through 2, sometimes 3 quarterbacks in a game, still finds a way to win the game. The defense down the stretch has been amazing. On the season, they're number 6 in the country, holding foes to 117-yard games under their average. BYU, not bad. They're number 27. But I just can't. My power ratings say Texas Tech. My eyes say Texas Tech. The last 4 weeks, BYU is plus 38 yards per game. Texas Tech is plus 221. So I like Texas Tech all the way around, but I don't think it's going to make my card because I don't want to lay this big of a price point in a neutral setting against a team that really hasn't been tested. Texas Tech, they are plus 8 turnovers in their last 5 games. They were only minus 1 turnover the entire season. The only game they lost a turnover battle in is Arizona State. So if something happens funky with Texas Tech and they get put in that position to have to fight back, I do have my concerns that they can do it. But lean Texas Tech for me, not going to get to the window in this game.
All right. Those are the 4 big power conference games we've hit for you already. I guess we're going to go lightning round maybe perhaps on the group of 5. I'm going to start it off with my best bet for the show. It is a Friday game. It is the Mountain West Conference Championship game, UNLV and Boise State, 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox. We've seen the line move Boise's way here, open -1.5, out to 4.5. That line move, guys, in case you haven't heard the news, Broncos quarterback Madison is set to return after being out for the last several games due to a lower leg injury. I still think the number's too short even after the line move, and I'm going to tell you why I think the line's too short. These teams played back in October, okay? Boise's here on the blue turf. This game is on the blue turf, just like the regular season meeting. Boise State closed -13 for that game, and they won 56-31. So we're getting it at 4.5 in the -4.5 in the rematch. What am I missing here? I just don't see why the line would be that much shorter for the rematch, especially considering, guys, Boise has owned UNLV through the years. 9 consecutive wins over the Rebels. 2 of those coming in the last 2 Mountain West Conference championship games. Broncos won by 14 here at home last year in the Mountain West Conference championship game, by 24 out in Vegas in the 2023 championship game. I've said it all year. UNLV, a little fraudulent to me. They did look good against Hawaii and Nevada down the stretch. I will tip my cap to Dan Mullen there. But there were a lot of games early in the year where I thought UNLV was fortunate to win. I think Boise State at full strength is a far, far superior team to UNLV, especially on the blue turf. So give me Boise State as my best bet. We'll recap at the end. Ralph.
You know what, Brian? When people see my sheet, I had like the lightest of opinion on UNLV. You actually talked me out of it. So when you guys see my sheet and you see my UNLV, cross that out, because, there is one thing I forgot when I was throwing down my opinions. I think the line came down because you look at UNLV, they're a 2-loss team, and you look at Boise, they're a 4-loss team. So, Joe Public is betting those type of situations. But let's not forget, and I did forget this, the losses against Fresno State, where they had 193 yards, and the losses at San Diego State when they had 268 yards, those were the first 2 games that Madison missed being injured, and Cutruff was there. So I forgot about that when I had that UNLV. Great point by you. I'm going to change my opinion, even though the sheet will say UNLV.
All right, Dan, get the white out behind the scenes. Our wonderful producer, Dan Alexander, working hard here on the Blitz as he does every week. Ross, is there anything you'd like to add for the Mountain West Conference?
Yeah, I agree with you, Brian. I think UNLV at 10-2 is fraudulent. I mean, I go back, you mentioned early in the year, how about their opening game against Idaho State, where they needed a touchdown with less than a minute to go to play, and I think they allowed over 500 yards of offense on defense to Idaho State. So, I think Boise State, with their quarterback back on the blue turf in a big game, which this program's used to that environment, is the play here. But, I'm not crazy about it, only for the fact that, again, UNLV lost last year in the conference championship game at Boise, and that cost them a conference playoff spot. Whoever won that game was going to be the group of 5 representatives. Right. So a little different type of revenge, but there was a big turnover with UNLV this year in terms of personnel, obviously. So I don't know how much that weighs in, but I'm going to have a small lean on Boise State here.
Yeah, I'll tip my cap. Look, I called his team out for a large portion of the year, but I'll tip my cap to Dan Mullen. His team absolutely outperformed my expectations this year. So good job for him. He did better than expected. I am a very proud Mid-American Conference graduate, as everyone knows. So I am working that game in. It is the other game on Saturday. Let's just round it out here. Western Michigan and Miami. This is the only group of 5 conference championship to be played on a neutral field. It's played Ford Field up in Detroit. Obviously, Detroit a lot closer to Kalamazoo than it is to Oxford, Ohio. Western Michigan's only MAC loss, guys, during the regular season was to Miami of Ohio, and they led that game. Miami of Ohio, I believe, scored the last 17 points to steal that one. Miami, a lot of people, we talked earlier about Duke getting into the tiebreak, Duke getting that bizarre tiebreaker in the ACC. The Mountain West had a bizarre tiebreaker with the computers determining that matchup of Boise State UNLV that we just talked about. Miami of Ohio really benefited from a weird tiebreaker here in the MAC, because there were 3 teams that finished 6-2. Miami of Ohio, my alma mater, and Toledo. Miami of Ohio actually lost to both of those teams. Yet, because it wasn't a round robin situation, they just threw out the head-to-head tiebreaker. And I think that's stupid, quite frankly. They lost to both of them. And I'm not just saying that as a bitter Ohio University Bobcat. But look, tip your cap to I thought the Red Hawks were dead and buried with Daquan Finn, you don't want to use the term quit, but he basically just said, I'm going to take my ball and go home, guys, and prepare for the NFL draft. Have fun for the rest of the season. What an odd situation that was. And here they are. They played, it was against Buffalo and Ball State. Both of those teams stink, for those of you who don't follow the MAC. But still, Western Michigan now, they lose. They have a chance at revenge. Revenge has been a common theme, Ralph, throughout the broadcast here that we've been talking about. Can Western Michigan get revenge against Miami of Ohio?
Well, my son went to Miami, Ohio, and, that's when I was working in the Phil Steele days, and I had gone to a couple games and talked to Chuck Martin a lot. He would go through his teams, and he's very good. And I'll tell you what, he gets more out of his players than any coach in the MAC. I mean, what he did coming from Notre Dame, I think he's been there now, a 10 dozen years maybe. Mm-hmm. Just amazing to me how he gets his players ready. And let's see, I'm in college, and I want to be an NFL quarterback, and I am about to lead my team to the MAC championship. Let's do the integrity thing and just quit on the freaking team. That's always good if you want to try to boost your process in the NFL draft. Let me tell you, that's the way to go, idiot. Western Michigan, the D-line, when you watch their D-line, they look like an SEC D-line. Obviously, the competition is much different. But I'll tell you what, Western Michigan had a huge lead in the conference in sacks. Miami actually finished with more sacks than Western Michigan because their defense had 6 sacks in each of the last 2 games. In those 2 games that you talked about, Brian, with the young quarterback, 6 sacks against Buffalo, 6 sacks against Ball State. That's not necessarily going to translate to a Western Michigan O-line stopping them. Slightest lean with Miami, just because between Chuck Martin and Lance Taylor in this situation, I give the edge to the Redhawks.
Yeah, and the MAC championship game historically has been one that has gone towards the underdogs. I believe it's actually there isn't a conference championship that's been stronger for the dogs. Ralph, you can fact check me on that, but I think off memory that's true. I should mention I like the under in this game as well, Ross. Western Michigan only allowed 14.4 points per game in conference play.
Let me jump in, Brian. MAC favorites are 3-10 the last 13, 5 straight unders in the MAC championship as well.
Okay, I think it's going to be 6 in a row personally. So. There you go with Western Michigan and Miami. The American, one of these teams is going to get in the playoff, and it's going to be North Texas versus Tulane, Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on ABC. I think the big story here, and what makes this a hard game to handicap, guys, is both coaches are leaving. Eric Morris of North Texas will be going to Oklahoma State. John Sumrall of Tulane is headed to Florida, now unlike Lane Kiffin out at Ole Miss and now LSU. Whoever wins here, that coach will be allowed to coach through the playoff. There is not necessarily the hard feelings that we have with Lane in Oxford. I know Ross had a lot to say about his feelings on Lane Kiffin last week. You guys get any strong? This to me is actually the game that I probably have the weakest take on. Home dogs historically have been pretty good, actually. I think going back to 2009, Ralph, in conference championship games, Tulane is a home dog. This is a team that typically is very good at home, the Green Wave. So I would have a small lean to the Green Wave. I don't know if either of you guys want to say anything about this.
Yeah, I have a lot to say, actually.
Okay.
Not a lot, but let's put it this way. This line makes no sense, Ralph. It makes no sense. Tulane is 6-0 at home. Tulane's the highest ranked group of 5 team. Tulane beat North Texas the last 2 seasons. And here they are as a home underdog in a conference championship game, which in all likelihood, one of these teams is going to go to the college football playoffs. Makes no sense. How is Tulane a home underdog? When I answer that question, I think with a contrarian mindset. Give me North Texas here.
Oh, wow. The old double fake there. I'll tell you what, I thought you were going one direction. You took us in the next there.
Yeah, I'm a tricky guy, Brian.
I hear you. All right.
I have a light lean, Brian, on Tulane, just being the home dog, and John Sumrall in his 2nd season, Eric Morris in his 3rd, and both coaches, it's different when you're a mid-major and your coach goes to a Power 4 school. You can't fault him because he brought you success. It's so much different than making a lateral move to a conference rival for the Ole Miss situation. So both coaches did the right thing, saying they're going to stay on and coach. Both programs did the right thing by saying you're allowed to coach.
Quick note here. Anyone watches, we, of course, record the show on Thursday afternoon. The weather forecast is calling for rain Friday night for this game. So keep an eye.
How about the wind, Brian?
Guys, the wind, I don't know about the wind. The wind, I do not have that in front of me. I just know that it is supposed to rain. And obviously North Texas, a high-flying passing attack, may not like that. Those kind of weather conditions, but we shall see. Sometimes weather leads to more scoring because the defenders are falling down. It's also supposed to be very cold, as I keep my weatherman hat on here. Very unusually cold in Harrisonburg, Virginia. James Madison is a 23.5-point favorite now against Troy. Troy is a team that is, even by Sun Belt standard, isn't very good. I wish Southern Miss would have made this game so we could have had a competitive matchup. JMU, style points. I know you were throwing around that term before the program, Ross.
Yeah.
JMU has a path to the college football playoff if they presumably win this game big, and then Duke wins the ACC championship game. I don't know. Laying 23.5 in a conference championship is not something that would make me feel good, but it's lay the points or pass for me.
Yeah, I'd be willing to lay the points. I mean, again, this is a James Madison team that's really good. They really are. I mean, look at their resume. Their only loss came in week 1. I believe Ralph could correct me on that if I'm wrong. But in any event, their defense is really good. And against a substandard team, in my opinion, like Troy, their defense is going to dominate. And, this is a group of 5 team that needs to make a statement. And I say that because obviously they're going to need some help. They're going to be big Duke fans. They're going to be big Texas Tech fans on Saturday. And if all that comes to fruition where Duke knocks off Virginia and Texas Tech knocks off BYU, now it's going to come down to the conference or the American champion or James Madison. And I think that people are automatically given a nod to the American champion because the conference as a whole is stronger. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, James Madison, man, they're going to win. If they win this game big and those 2 scenarios pan out, they're going to have a decent shot to be a college football playoff team. So, and they're not going to do that without being an impressive winner against, like you alluded to, Brian, nothing more than an average team, even by Sun Belt standards.
Yeah, I think Troy is 122nd nationally in yards per play differential. That's bad.
Yeah, 1.7 yards per carry their last 4 games for Troy.
Who did James Madison lose to, Ralph?
They beat an FCS team week 1, then they went to Louisville week 2 and lost.
Yeah, and they dominated. They actually had better statistics in that game, if I recall.
Let me look. They only had 263 yards, but they held Louisville to 264. So they went to Louisville as a big dog, and they only got outgained by 1 yard. Yeah. And they were minus 1 turnover in that 28-14 loss. I was going to say this, Brian. I am not going to have James Madison on my card, but this clearly is a live betting situation I have circled. We saw them against Coastal Carolina take 56-10, got motivated, needed those points last week, and did. Yeah. They're good enough to get style points. If something happens early, fluky, like Troy gets an opening kickoff touchdown, and all of a sudden we're live betting it, it comes down to 17, I will be all over live betting James Madison in the first half.
Yeah, that's right. They were running a hurry up late in that game against Coastal Carolina. So don't tell me that they're not thinking style points. Ralph, I don't know if you have this. Did I read this correctly that the last 39 conference championship game winners have also all covered the spread? I thought I saw that earlier in the week, which is amazing.
I can look that up pretty quick. I have not read that. The straight up winner has
covered. Yeah, I think 39 straight times. I apologize for putting you on the spot in that, but I only bring it up because boy, is that going to be put to the test here with James Madison, a 23.5-point favorite. I apologize to Conference USA. We're running out of time. Kennesaw and Jacksonville State. We're just going to throw them on the chart here. Dan, if you have the chart, well, here's all of our leans we went over here on the show. There we go. There we go with Conference USA. I kind of like the over. Ralph leans Kennesaw State. We all like James Madison there. Kind of a difference of opinion in the American. My best bet was on Boise in the Mountain West, and then Ralph switched at the end, so we all agree there. Ralph lied. He likes Boise State. Thank you very much. Dan Alexander. I was the lone soldier on BYU in the Big 12 championship. It's not my strongest opinion, guys. Georgia, Alabama. I like Alabama. Ross likes the under. Ralph likes Georgia as his best bet. Those are bet, and that was Ross's best bet as well. We all liked Virginia in the ACC. Ralph and I like Indiana plus the points of the Big Ten. Ross likes the under. I think I just ran through that chart all without taking a breath there. So,
hey, Dan, I mean, Brian, I do have that number for you.
Okay, go ahead.
Since the 2021 season, oh crap, I typed in the wrong date. Sorry, 2020, December 19th. All right, sorry, I am stalking time here real quick. A great stat, Brian. It is the last 42 conference championship winners have covered the spread.
Wow.
There you go. So
Great
pick a
number,
straight up winner,
Brian.
everybody.
I will
it's that
tweet
easy.
that out and give you credit for it. So perfect.
Thank you. All right. Hey,
Right.
Guess what? Took me an hour and I said something smart. That's all that's what matters there. All right, guys, please, if you've enjoyed this content, like and subscribe. I will ask you one more time. Comment. And if you're catching us on the replay, comment down below. We'll be checking the comments as the weekend progresses.
Brian,
Yes.
I have a question for you. There
Yes.
is the LA Bowl is the night of the Army Navy. Then there's a bowl the following Tuesday, 2 Wednesday, and 1 Thursday before we get back. So if you have enough time to get those bowls done, we will have the Army Navy game and 5 bowls to go over before we're on the following week.
Okay. That sounds like a plan to me. By the way, I neglected to mention when I did my best bet. Guys, let's just remind the people what we've got going on WagerTalk.com before we say goodbye. Had a 5% winner on Sunday over Rams Panthers. I thought that was a pretty good bet. It cashed very quickly early in the second half, as a matter of fact. If you're watching this live, I have a 5% play on the Thursday night NFL game between the Lions and Cowboys. 3 for 3 when betting these two teams the last 3 weeks. Had the Lions Eagles under a few weeks ago. Had the Cowboys outright over the Eagles, Dan. And then on Thanksgiving, I had Cowboys Chiefs over. So make sure to check that out. WT.buzz/BP, 5% NFL play for Thursday. 7-2-1 with NFL sides and totals the last 3 weeks. And not to be outdone, we went 16-7 in college football, or pardon me, 13-7 in college football in the month of November. I got a little excited there. Hopefully the winning continues on conference championship weekend. Ross, remind people what you got going on this weekend as your
I actually, if you see this in time, if you see it on Thursday, or if you're watching live, I had the Thursday NFL winner bet with 100% against the spread betting angle. My NFL last week went 6-2, folks, 13-4 over the last 2 weeks. You can get that pick right now for $25. I will have Friday and Saturday college football conference championship winners. And again, I'm not going to be redundant, but college football has been really good over the last 3 years for me, including this year. And in the NFL on Sunday, I'll have 3 to 4 plays as well. And I'll have a play on Monday night, $49 Weekend Warrior Pass. And don't forget the college football postseason pass, I call it. We term it differently, but basically it's college football postseason pass, including the Navy-Army game, all for $149, 40-21 with my college football postseason pick since 2023.
All right. And you remember, Weekend Warrior Pass, of course, includes Monday Night Football as well. Ralph, go ahead. Close this out.
Ross, I had a losing college football week this past week. I'm going to say probably in the last 15 weeks of college football, that's probably the first time we both had a losing Saturday on the same day. Actually lost to 5% as well. So I apologize, but that's going to happen when you're handicapping every week. I do want to mention, even though this is a college football show, I'm number 1 in the NFL the last 30 days. I've really crunched it down and be very conservative. Last 4 weeks, only 10 plays, but I'm 9-1. So Weekend Warrior, $49, or college football rest of the year, $149.
All right. Sounds like we may actually have a show next week. So stay tuned. We'll keep you updated. I'll tweet something out just to keep you abreast of all the details. But for Ross Benjamin, for Ralph Michaels, I am Bryan Power. And until next time, let's catch them.